please welcome up Daniel Riedel.
Thank you very much, by the way. One of the things I like about, or I love about Japan and aspects of elements like the tea ceremony, planned, thoughtful process and understanding. And when we start thinking about AI and the growth that's happening right now, planned, thoughtful, and harmony probably aren't the top words that come to mind when we think about the hype and the growth and the scale of what we're seeing. And so my inner passion, if you don't know me very well, my inner passion is actually planetary stability. The reason being is because there's so many pieces and parts right now of the world that are somewhat disconnected in how they come together. And we can see this as AI in the last 2 years, as we take it on and get involved with the ChatGPT, with the Anthropic, with all the different systems out there, and the excitement and the growth of what's capable. But there are some challenges that not everyone's looking at. San Francisco is absolutely the center of this space. We are seeing immense growth, and we have people building all sorts of types of technologies out there to address this. But what's not being as talked about is the infrastructure required to actually accomplish this task over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. $630 billion is how much we're going to start investing in the next 5 years just in global energy infrastructure. To understand that, that's a 5x increase year over year on building out energy capability in an industry that had stayed relatively flat for close to 2 decades. 7,600 data centers are going to get deployed. The amount of chips, the amount of computers, the amount of software that is required to get all of that done, we are not ready for. If you ask yourself, are we ready for the growth of AI? The answer is no, and you can see it in many aspects of the world today. But that's why GenLab is so excited, because there's incredible, absolute incredible investment opportunity and growth opportunity when we look at all the systems that need to be supported to sustain this growth. And so that's why we actually built a venture studio, not just a venture fund. There's a lot of funds out there that are applying dollars to this problem, but as a venture studio, we don't just apply money. We pull in the best minds that we can possibly happen. In fact, many of you in this room are helping us today build that, and we appreciate that. We put this conference together as not a hype conference, but as an intimate group of people, which I hope you all get to connect with each other, because everyone here is providing some part of that infrastructure, and we're going to have to figure out how to scale that out. And so we're pulling together the smartest people we can get our hands on, applying capital to that, and then looking at how we can start solving these problems in reverse of a typical fund. A typical fund finds a founder who's very excited about a particular technology, applies money, they go to market, and they try and get out there. We're trying to do this absolutely in reverse. What we know is that the energy industry, the transportation industry, the communication industry are trying to solve these problems, and so we know there are some hard problems out there to solve. We find those hard problems, we identify those gaps, we find ways to sell to them. We then bring in technology partners to apply this and potentially on-ramp that information on-ramp those companies to Japan or our European partners. But at the end of the day, it's the team that we build and the company we produce in reverse of that typical order, because we don't know what we don't know when we look at a venture studio, but that gives us that ability to experiment in that way. And that's why we think that we can start building foundational companies over the next 3 or 4 years, and we've already started. So I wanted to bring this slide up. We have, over the last 30 years, gone through the machine learning phase, the big data phase, and we saw great growth in cloud, right? We've seen that. AI is AI plus, not just AI, but autonomous systems. The physical manifestation of artificial intelligence, in my mind, is autonomous systems. And other mindsets of moving energy on how we move things from gas to EVs. We have to build faster than we've ever built before. But in critical infrastructure, these are highly regulated spaces. Safety, not security, is paramount. Well, safety and security is paramount, but a reason why I bring up safety, in the last 30 years, so last 15 years, I built a cybersecurity company, I sold a cybersecurity company. I've testified in front of the Senate on how complex it is to secure infrastructure. But once we start attaching superintelligence to physical things, you move from losing your credit card to potentially having your PII exposed to potentially having physical harm in the same ecosystem that we've been managing in the data and the software space. That $630 billion number I stated earlier is an underestimated number. If you actually take your phone out and scan this, there's a great report that talks about that infrastructure. But this is actually underestimated. You have, sorry, I saw some people take their phones out. Yep. We have, if I asked you 5 years ago, how many people here thought that Microsoft and Google and AWS are going to be becoming energy companies? A few of us. But building small modular reactors, we're actually looking at nuclear now to actually support the growth of data centers. The pace at which we're going to build and deploy is like no other. And so we're entering this autonomous systems economy, AI and autonomous systems. Now, superintelligence is going to be fantastic. And I talk about AI, AGI, and superintelligence, and happy this evening over drinks to talk about what is AGI, what is superintelligence. But the point is that train has left the train station, and it is going at a pace and a speed that we cannot imagine. It's going to allow us to do some really incredible stuff, but only if we have resilient infrastructure to get that going. And so today, we're going to start talking about some of those pieces. We're going to go from foundational models. We're going to talk about data. Data, in my mind, is the fundamental element of the value of artificial intelligence. It's only as good as the data, right? And we're going to get into what does it mean to actually scale this fast? How do we do that? Critical infrastructure is typically a waterfall methodology. We tried waterfall in software development from the 90s to the 2000s, 2010s. It did not work out very well. That's why we reinvented the whole way we actually do software development with DevOps and DevSecOps. And so now we have to take that thinking and actually apply it to the real world on how we actually build our transportation systems. How many people have gotten a Waymo yet? How many people are scared to go in a Waymo? But if we think about it, that's that infrastructure that we have to create to feel that sense of safety to be able to do that at scale. And right now, you see a couple of these things driving around right now. Remember New York in the 1980s and the 1990s? It was a sea of yellow. That's all that was out there. And so that's where we're going to be. And so how do we move and manage supply chains for the millions of machines that we're going to have to create? How do we keep track of it? How do we trust the data? How do we know the data is the right data? There are so many things to solve, and every single one of those questions is a potential opportunity for us. So when we look at this, we're going to be thinking about sensors. We're going to think about logistics. We're going to think about all of the boring things. But those boring things have an incredible amount of scale to them and allow us to do things that we've never imagined before. Some people are thinking about colonizing Mars. That's actually current thinking, colonizing Mars in our lifetime, whether we get there or not, we have to start thinking about this planet. So I talk about planetary stability. How are we going to manage this planet that we're on? Because we're going to have to figure out a lot of things, like how do we build water barriers and other elements on climate and global warming. There's so much that has to be done. So this is just sort of a thinking of, if we want superintelligence, we have to get to work and start building and creating and delivering all of the, as I said, boring, but data, sensors, cybersecurity, safety, infrastructure. But that is a massive blue ocean opportunity. Now, there'll be plenty of companies out there focusing on how can I build the next chat robot or sales channel, but we're going to be focusing on how can we do that. So with that, I want to kick off our panels today. I'm going to hand the mic back to my co-founder here, and thank you for being here. This is a very select group of people that we care about. You're all personally invited, and very much looking forward to giving you some amazing content today.
Thank you very much, Daniel.